See if we can park it on this side. Somewhere like over there. But we're gonna have some breakfast here and then we'll move on. This mural caught my interest. I'm gonna just move over a little bit so I don't get run over. I want to photograph it, but there are a couple of problems I want Emilia has to look at. So one of the issues with photography, Sophia, is that people often rush to photograph exactly what they see. A photograph isn't what you see. A photograph needs to be constructed. When you see something, what you're seeing actually is merely the potential of what may be photographed. And the act of seeing really begins the process. Once the act of seeing is done, then we get into the act of making a photograph. The hard work comes by transforming it into an interesting photograph. I'm going to hang out here and see if I can pull it off. If I can, then here's the photograph. So let's start again with the light. You can see the light's coming from behind me. That's the first thing we want to think about is where is the light and what is the light? How to position ourselves against it or in relation to it. The light's coming behind me. This is late afternoon sun, so it's beautiful. So the tone and texture of the light's gorgeous. And the mural is really just well lit in this evening, late afternoon, early evening light. So directionality is clear, light quality is clear. The shadow light play is somewhat limited. I would have wanted more. I think these shadows here are a bit useless and they don't work so well. The depth, these shadows are adding depth to the photograph. They are offering a dimensionality, but there isn't great shadow light play. But again, that's one of the things that doesn't always have to be there. I don't particularly like this side of the frame because I think these shadows are a bit sloppy. The geometry is straight, verticals are verticals, horizontals are horizontals. This is absolutely critical. I want to make sure that the verticals are not being interrupted or they're not overlapping on each other. Horizontals, keeping the camera straight. The background, as I'm thinking about the geometry, the background is cluttered. I don't like that. I did try to position myself here to clean out the background, to get a nice clean wall, but there wasn't much I could do here. But I've controlled it to some degree, and I think it's tolerable, but it's not perfect. I would have wanted more. In fact, maybe no tree, just the roof, but anyhow. And then use of the edges. So I have allowed protruding objects flowing out from the top and bottom. I feel that the right side edges are rather empty, and I wish there was something that we could have done about that. The left side maybe less so because of the way the house is being juxtaposed here, but again, not perfect, not perfect. The subject, the movement, and the gesture. So I photographed this man here at a moment when he was just between seemingly normal movements. So a movement would have been just him walking across. The gesture is this strange moment when I captured him. I find I want to do that. I want to capture people just in the moment of when they seem a little bit off balance. It creates a certain kind of dynamism and instability in the frame, which I love. It doesn't allow the frame to feel static. At the moment of making the frame or at the moment of looking at the frame afterwards, I am trying to think of how many of those 9 did I achieve, and did I create the fundamental grammar upon which a stronger image could be created? This is a statue of a former Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Bandaranaike. And I'll tell you a little bit about him, but let me first tell you about why this photograph is going to be a bit of an issue. So first things first, you can see that the light is not right. So the statue is in shadow. The sun is right at the top, which means there's little or no texture in the frame. When the sun is this high, when it's this bright, it just washes everything out. And it's not quite noon yet. We'll come back here in an hour or so and I'll show you again. But since I know the orientation of this town, I know that the sun is going to be moving from the left, of my left, and over to that side. So that's basically the west. This is the east.
I can already tell that the way and time to make a photograph here would be to come in the morning. It would be to come when the sun is hitting the statue. In the evening, it's not going to work because the sun's going to be behind, and that's going to violate our base rule, which is never allow the main light source to be in front of your shoulders. The other issue here is the background's really cluttered. Can you see how just all these trees and wires, and there's just nothing really that frames this statue. So the trick's going to be to try and find a framing that uses the clutter in a way that works. And that's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to come back here in the morning to see if I can find something. The clouds at the back are great. I don't know if those will be there in the morning. Again, you can't have it all. But the things that you can control when you make your pictures is this. Watch the light. You know that the time to come now would be in the morning. Watch the geometry when you start to do your framing. Never put this thing right in the center, right? The obvious photograph would be just this one where I'm standing right now, but that's not the photograph. I need to walk around. I need to move around and find a framing that isn't so obvious or uninteresting. Other elements, objects that can interrupt it and make it interesting.
So I went the following morning and I found this frame. Polonnaruwa's statue offers the background, but let's talk about it in order. So the light is again behind me. Now the sun is in the east, so it's coming from my left side, a little bit behind my shoulders as always. It's morning light, so it's clean, not as orange, but it's still beautiful, clean light. The shadow light play is a little bit sloppy. As you can see, the shadows here are sort of not really that clean and distinct. Obviously, the trees are creating dark areas, which I'm not a particular fan of. But there is enough shadow play, enough dark elements to give the image a sense of depth. So it's not a flat image. It's forcing the eye to move through as it looks for things because of the shadows. The geometry is straight. So as you can see, all the verticals are being kept apart as much as I can without losing the framing on this side. Horizontals are horizontal. The background is cluttered and more than I would like. I wish, again, these trees were not as dense. I don't particularly like this background. I think in that sense, this image is weak. The edges are decently used. You have obviously the vertical lines breaking up to the top. You have this board on the left. If you crop it a little bit tighter, the board sort of subjects. You can see there's a subject and there's movement, but there's no gesture. And at this time in the morning, people are just walking, commuting to school or work, and perhaps if I had waited I would have gotten something more, but I didn't. I just got a subject moving. I put him in the middle because Polonnaruwa's statue makes the back. I would love to have had another human subject here. So there is possibility, a potential of this image to be multi-layered as far as subjects go here and here. I think that if I came back, I could find a frame where foreground subject, middle ground there, and that would have, and background, and that would have made this image more complete, more complex, more exciting to move through.
There are a lot of tourists here. And you find new ways of pushing it into the main frame. See that? So you can see, Sophia, the frame is behind me, and I'm trying to see if I can find a frame where the image is this time around a little bit more offset than what I had before. As I've said before, like, you don't necessarily have to have the object always in the center of the frame. Play with the shadows that are clearly present. Keep the geometry as straight as I can, and then have movement in the frame at multiple levels. I can only get some movement here, and I can try and get some movement right back over there if I'm lucky. It may not always work, but you have to be a little bit careful. At this moment, basically, I'm trying to bring all 8 of the elements together in one image. It's never easy.
Now let me just go through the 9 elements again. You can see the lights coming from behind me. This is a beautiful evening light. So we've got this beautiful orange glow all over it. So the light position is exactly what I want. The light quality, the time of day I'm working is perfect. The shadow light play has gotten a little bit out of hand. I was not able to, by the time I made this frame, and the one frame that sort of worked, the shadows had extended all the way out, and that's something I couldn't help. I was not able to find a photograph or have a frame from the moment when this area was still sunlit. So in a way, this, for me, ruins the frame because the shadows are extending all the way in, and they're leaving these characters, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, in the shadow. So the shadow light play isn't perfect. The geometry, verticals are verticals, horizontals are horizontals, and you will see that I'm paying attention to where I don't want the verticals to overlap and cut each other out. So trying to keep an eye on that as much as possible. The background is cluttered. I couldn't do anything about this tree. I hate the way this tree clutters this particular statue. The trees here, and this tree at the back. I wish the roof profiles of these buildings were as clean as they are over here, but unfortunately couldn't be helped. There just wasn't another location where I could make another frame. So the background is kind of cluttered. It's not perfect. The edges, I feel, are not really that well used. Whereas this top edge has this pillar sort of breaking up into it. This bottom edge you can see is really blank. And the left edge, I just wasn't able to get anything coming in. So for me, like, too many of the edges of this frame are blank. And that I personally don't like. Like this rickshaw tuk-tuk here could work with a slightly more cropped frame, and that would give this edge, make it busier, but that would leave still these two here, which are rather open. There are no real subjects here. These are obviously passengers in a motorcycle, in a tuk-tuk, but there's just some movement, but no real subject character. There's no gesture whatsoever. So in that sense, this image to me still feels very flat. This frame doesn't quite work. It's fine, but it's not going past being fine.
They're big fans of Nescafe coffee here. So, thank you very much. There are 8 key things that go to make an amazing photograph. And I'm certainly not suggesting that if you get those 8 things right, you'll make a great photograph. What I'm going to stress, and I'm going to talk about this again and again and again in this particular episode and other episodes, is the 8 things that need to be in a photograph. Getting the geometry of the image right. I'm insistent on a very, very clear and straight geometry. Horizontals are horizontals, verticals are verticals. You want to get the base light directionality right. The light should always be coming from behind you. The main light source, the brightest object in the frame, in your photograph, should be behind your shoulders. Those 2 things are foundational. Everything else, you start to build from there. Obviously, quality of the light. Once known by many as the golden hour light, or it could be morning light. The lower the sun is, you're more likely to have more beautiful light, early morning hours, dusk, and also tend to produce deeper shadows. And shadows are what gives images 3-dimensionality. Also, shadows themselves can be very, very important geometric elements in your frame. They can help frame within the frame. So that's like the 4th element. The 5th element is having subjects, people, things moving in the frame, things in the frame. And then movement, the movement of the subject, gestures, having the subject be in the midst of doing something. And then finally, the framing. And by framing, I mean 2 things. Layers. An image have multiple layers, not just flat, not just everything down the center. Perhaps one of the most difficult things, and maybe the flourish on an amazing photograph, is the ability to find layers in it. Foreground, middle ground, background, and then to use the edges of the frame. Very few people realize how important the edges of a frame are. So those 8 things.
the light shadow play, where shadows become elements in your photograph. They offer depth, but they can also offer framing within the frame.